The folder was navy blue and unremarkable, the kind a person brings to a meeting where they expect to be the one taking notes. Celeste Odom carried it tucked under her left arm, not in her hand. That detail mattered later. It always matters later which arm. She arrived at the Ashmore Club at 11:40 on a Tuesday morning in March, traffic still damp from the overnight rain. The club sat 3 stories of pale limestone behind a stand of boxwood on Meridian Street, the kind of building that looked pleased with itself without trying. The brass plate beside the door said members only in letters so small they almost dared you to squint. Celeste did not squint. She had the letter of engagement in that navy folder, signed by the club's own general manager, with her firm's name across the top in 12-point type, Halloran Strategic Group, 2 floors of a building 2 blocks away, 47 consultants, and a seat at the table that most of the city's private institutions would have paid considerably to secure. She had been hired, by the Ashmore Club itself, to evaluate whether the venue could support a 4-year, $2.4 million corporate dining contract for Halloran's flagship client, a regional financial house that hosted 8 to 12 formal dinners annually and needed a home for them. Nobody at the front door knew that. That was, in the most exact sense, the whole point. Britta had walked with her from the parking structure that morning. She was in her 3rd week of shadowing senior partner walkthroughs, and she had stopped at the bottom of the club's steps and watched Celeste go ahead up the marble without her, as agreed. The junior associates never joined evaluation walkthroughs. They watched from a distance, took their own notes, and learned what they could from the gap between what an institution presented and what it actually was. Britta stood across the street by the boxwood for 19 minutes. She wrote down what she saw. She had not been told to, exactly. She simply saw what happened and understood that someone should record it. The doorman, young, white, not unkind in the ordinary way, held the outer door but moved sideways to block the inner one. He looked at her the way a person looks at a package they didn't order. "The service corridor is around the side," he said. "Staff check-in is through the kitchen." She had a badge from the firm clipped to her lapel. The folder was under her arm. Her coat was camel-colored cashmere with flat black buttons, the one she wore to client walkthroughs for precisely this reason. "I have a reservation," Celeste said. 11:45, your dining room. Celeste Odom, Halloran Strategic. "Our lunch service today is private." He said it with the practiced warmth of a person who had been taught that a pleasant delivery makes a closed door feel like a courtesy. "You'll want to check with the event staff." She did not sigh. She did not shift her weight. She gave him a look that her junior associates at Halloran could have described from memory, the one that said she had already decided how this would end, and she was giving him a moment to arrive at it himself. "Please let Mr. Ashby know I'm here," she said. "He's expecting me." The doorman disappeared inside. Celeste stood on the marble step and watched a cab turn the corner and a woman walk a terrier past the boxwood without once breaking her patient, level composure. She was aware of how she looked standing there. She had been aware of that her whole career. 42 years old, black, composed, standing at a door that had already decided she belonged somewhere else. It was not a new feeling. It was an old one, the specific, practiced cost of moving through institutions that had not yet learned to see her. But she was also aware of something else. She had a pen. The folder was open in her mind if not her hands. And she was already writing. Paul Ashby, the club's director of private events and the man who had signed the engagement letter, found her on the step 70 seconds later. He was white, mid-50s, the kind of man who had probably been jovial his entire career and could not quite locate why this particular moment felt precarious. "Ms. Odom," he said, with a degree of warmth that was working very hard. "I am so sorry, there seems to have been a, please, come in, come in." She came in. The dining room was what she had expected, linen the color of old cream, silver cutlery that rang when the boozers stacked it wrong, a chandelier doing its level best to look modest. A lunch had already been laid for 2. The club's general manager, a white man named Charles Devere who had sent her the engagement letter, stood at the table and extended his hand. "A misunderstanding at the door," Devere said. It landed somewhere between an apology and a description. "It did happen," Celeste agreed pleasantly. She sat down. She opened the folder. They ate. She asked her questions in the order she had planned: capacity, catering exclusivity, staffing ratios on formal evenings, the club's policy on exterior signage for corporate events. She noted Devere's answers in the margins of the engagement terms with the mechanical pencil she kept in the folder's inner pocket. She noted other things too, the 12 minutes she had stood on the step, the precise words the doorman had used, the part where he had said service corridor with the small certainty of a man who had sent people that direction before. Devere asked about the timeline for the recommendation. "I'll have a report to our managing partner by Thursday," Celeste said. "And what are you finding so far?" Ashby ventured. She looked at him for a moment. "I'm finding everything I need," she said. The report went to Marcus Halloran on Thursday at 9 in the morning. It was 14 pages. The first 11 documented the club's event infrastructure, staffing model, kitchen capacity, and alignment with the client's hosting requirements. The last 3 documented what had happened at the front door, the exact words, the exact time, the exact duration, and a note that the incident was consistent with the kind of front-of-house pattern that created liability exposure for corporate clients whose guests could not be guaranteed a uniform welcome at the door. Marcus read it once, then read the last 3 pages a second time. He set the report down and looked out his window at the building across the street for a long moment. Then he picked it up and read the last 3 pages a third time. He called Charles Devere that afternoon. The call was quiet and 3 minutes long and did not involve any language that could have been described as heated. Marcus was not a man who needed heat. He had the report. The Halloran client made its venue decision the following Monday. The Ashmore Club was not on the short list. Devere sent Celeste an email that Tuesday evening. The tone was careful, the language corrective in the way of institutions that have absorbed a difficult lesson and are not certain they have fully absorbed it yet. He wrote that the club had placed the doorman on a retraining review, that the event staff check-in procedure was being examined, and that the club was commissioning a review of its front-of-house welcome standards. Celeste read it on her phone, standing in her firm's parking structure, her coat buttoned against the March cold. She wrote back in 3 lines. She thanked him for the update. She noted that the retraining review was an appropriate first step. She wished the club well. Then she got in her car and drove home in the dark. Marcus, for his part, had said it plainly when he closed the report, "The work is impeccable," which we knew. The club didn't. And now they understand what they passed up. But it was the managing partner's assistant, a young woman named Britta who had been at the firm 14 months and who had formatted the report and read every word of it, who said the thing that stayed. She had knocked on Celeste's office door the Friday the report went in. Stood in the doorway. Did not quite know how to shape what she'd read into a sentence that fit the professional setting she was standing in. "You were so calm," Britta finally said. Celeste looked at her for a moment. She thought of the marble step. The 12 minutes. The boxwood in the rain. "That's the job," she said. Which was true. It was also, and more precisely, the weight, the specific labor of holding yourself level in a place that looked at you and saw something else. It cost something every time. It did not stop costing because you had been doing it for 20 years. But it had also, in this particular case, produced 14 pages, and those 14 pages had done what 14 pages in the right hands can do. The Ashmore Club would have a new welcome standard by the summer. A posted procedure. A different way of seeing who came through the door. Celeste had not planned to be the one to give it to them. She had simply come to do her job. And she had done it.